flyweight division coming up this weekend. Louisiana's Andrea Lee doesn't have to travel too far to take on the future Maycee Barber. And when it comes to 2023, the future's in the UFC. Ian Gary won.
Too many.
Sam Patterson lost. They're 1-1. Maycee Barber looking to take it home and sweep it and go 2-1. And when it comes down to this fight, Matt, I don't often start videos out this way. But since we've done Fight Night picks, since we picked fights, since UFC 247 as a sample size, you and I are both, I went back and watched them today, 0-5 in picking Andrea Lee fights. We picked Lee to beat Murphy, Lee to beat Modafferi, Shevchenko to beat Lee, Calvillo to beat Lee, and Lee to beat Araujo. We are terrible at picking Andrea Lee fights.
Don't worry, I'm going to take that baton and keep on running with it. This fight's going to be really one-sided one way or another. I'm just telling you right now, I'm either going to look like a genius or an idiot, so get ready to make the comments right now. Maycee Barber either marches Andrea Lee down and makes her pay for it up against the cage over and over and over again, or Andrea Lee gets really close to the cage, really close, but has just enough distance to keep her back off of it and can maintain her movement. And if she could just jab and throw like a straight shot every now and then, think of the Montana De La Rosa fight. That's a great example. Montana De La Rosa, much more of a wrestling threat, I would say, than Maycee Barber, but she's like 70-30 wrestling to striking, whereas Maycee Barber's like 70-30 striking to wrestling, I guess. So I think there are some similarities, at least in the way that they approach the fight. But Barber's either going to march Andrea Lee down, get her up against the cage, use the clinch, and that's what I do think Barber's going to have to do in this fight. Lee is great at using that movement, using her back foot, and making you chase her in the fight so that she's not getting cut off in the octagon. But if Maycee is able to really use that clinch, incorporate it, just to hold Lee up against the cage, I think it will open up some of those flurries after she immediately breaks out of the clinch. But as I say that, Andrea Lee's not some like slouch in the clinch. She is very good from that position, but if you go back and watch the Joanne, I think it was Calderwood at the time, now Wood, she was able to hurt Lee bad in the clinch on multiple occasions. And I know Wood's someone who that's kind of at the forefront of her game. We talked about the clinch elbows quite a bit, but I do think the aggressiveness of Barber is going to be able to get her in some of those similar situations to where she can have similar success, not with the elbows, of course, but with a lot more of those powerful hooks that we've seen Maycee use throughout her career.
When you break it down for both these women, Andrea Lee is somebody that's going to throw more volume, land more shots than Maycee Barber does. Typically, she's also the more susceptible to getting takedowns in her fights as well, and you'll definitely remember the fight that Lee had against Antonina Shevchenko where it was okay. For me at that point in time in my life, I thought Shevchenko was going to have success in the kickboxing. And Andrea Lee cut the distance, brought it down to the mat, and ended up getting the submission win. And for Lee, her last time out, this is where it gets really weird. I mean, whether it was 29-27s, whether it was 30-27, like however you scored that fight, first round, Viviane Araujo, hands dropped just a little bit, steps in as Lee steps into her own jab. The jab drops Araujo, and Lee ends up on the bottom, and, well, with Araujo on the mat, and Lee's hammering away. So for me, she won the first round, Araujo maybe the 10-8 in the second round, and then the third round was a 10-9 for Araujo. It was a little bit of a surprise for Lee in that matchup, and there were reasons why I thought, hey, cardio is going to carry her to a win, striking on the outside is going to be able to get her the win. It's just, I have a really hard time, picking these fights. And then it clouds my judgment, and I go back and watch them, and I can pick up on these positives from Andrea Lee, who's somebody that kind of crouches to her opponent's stance because she is one of the bigger fighters at 125. She does keep her hands a little bit low, but those odd angle punches tend to find their home. And for Barber, it's pressure, 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 pressure. And we look at those two losses that she had. The loss against Roxanne Modafferi was definitely a tough one with the injury.
She Clay Thompson herself.
Then she took on Alexa Grasso, the now champ, lost a decision there, in somewhat of a close fight. Beat Miranda Maverick by split decision in a fight that majority thought that Maverick had won.
I thought she won that one, to be honest.
You're on.
That's fine. We can disagree with that, but I thought she won that fight.
But last year, beating Montana De La Rosa, 30-27s across the board, and Jessica I, where I came back in the second round, but Barber won the first, won the third. It's just, will the pressure Maycee Barber get her to a victory? The 313,000 Instagram fans versus Lee's 167,000. A lot of weird comments on those posts when I went to look at them today. A lot of weird comments.
I don't look at the comments of people's Instagram posts for these videos. I think Maycee Barber has a great chance to win this fight, but I worry about her getting discouraged by her own game plan, because she's going to have to eat punches to win this fight. It's not going to be a clean victory where, Maycee Barber walks in, knocks her out in the first round, and it's just all sunshine and flowers. Like, you're going to have to eat a lot of volume from Andrea Lee. You're going to have to be dedicated to the game plan, and that's why this is a really difficult fight to predict because, again, the power goes to Maycee Barber, and it's not really close in that one area, but Andrea Lee throws a lot at you. She does not allow you time to think, whether it's with the kicks or the punches, so it's a really interesting fight to see where Barber does fit into the division because you bring up the losses. There's a pretty major injury to factor into one of them, and she lost to the champion, and there's no shame in that. So I think this is a really fun fight to figure out where Barber does fit into the division.
Barber about a 2-1 favorite. Andrea Lee just turned 34 a few months ago. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, surprised us there to you. I'm going to say over under 80% Barber.
I think they'll be under.
I think they're going to be under. They're slightly over. 749 total votes, 83% Barber, 86% by decision. For the 17% that have Lee, 82% by decision. I think Maycee Barber wins a decision with her pressure, but like you said, I mean, Andrea Lee gets mean in the clinch, throws elbows, throws knees, throws good punches on the outside and on the inside, can struggle moving the head when it's on the center line a little bit. Most people do, but for Andrea Lee, she can struggle in that respect. But again, I'm 0-5 picking Andrea Lee fights in the UFC. I'm throwing a dart at the veritable board, and if you make fun of me on this one, boys, have at her. Have at her.
I mean, let's either go 1-5 or 0-6 together.
Yeah.
I've got Maycee Barber in this one, too. I do like the forward pressure out of her, but again, I bring up the Montana De La Rosa fight a lot because as I was watching that fight, I'm like, oh my god. Well, Maycee does everything Montana does. She just doesn't threaten as much with the wrestling. It's a lot more with the boxing combinations, but I think she'll be able to work herself into range a lot better than Montana did and avoid some of those punches. So I do have Maycee Barber.
We'll see if the nickname The Future can go 2-1 on the season. Both of us going with Maycee Barber to get the win. Some big-time fights left on this card, including a bantamweight feature in the co-main event. 2 former title challengers, 1 former champion, Yana Santos taking on Holm. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.